All right, everybody, we're going to explore angle pairs in this section of the book. So let's start with adjacent angles. So adjacent angles are two angles in the same plane, so they're coplanar, and they share a ray, which means they share an endpoint and all the other points that extend on, right? So they share a ray or a side, sometimes just a segment. And then they once again have a common vertex, which would be the endpoint of that ray, and they have no common interior points. Okay, so they don't overlap on the interior at all. Just on the they share a side, and that's it. So here are some examples here of adjacent angles. Okay, so in this first example, angle CAB would be adjacent to angle BAD, right? So CAB would be adjacent to BAD, right? They share the side BA, um, but they don't, and they share the vertex, but they don't have any common interior points, right? None of these overlap with any of these. Okay. All right. And the same thing with these other ones, right? Angle 1 here is adjacent to angle 2, and then here um, we have a couple pairs of adjacent angles. Actually, we have more than that if we wanted to look deeper, but angle 1 is adjacent to 2, angle 2 is adjacent to angle 3, right? Okay. Now, just to show you some non-examples here, so these are not adjacent angles, right? They do share a side, but they don't share a vertex. And so, because remember, they should have a ray in common, right? And the ray that starts here and goes on forever isn't the same as the ray that starts here and goes forever in this direction, right? So they really don't share a ray. So those are not non-adjacent because they don't share a ray, they don't share a vertex. All right, here once again non-adjacent, right? They're not next to each other. They don't share a side. They don't share anything, right? So those don't work. Here, this is another kind of angle pair that we have here with angle BA. Let's see, what is that? BAC and D, or BPC, I should say, and DPA. Those are not adjacent angles. They do share a vertex, but they don't share a side. Okay, now this one here looks like we have some adjacent angles, and we actually do. We have AOB and BOC. Those are adjacent, but this is the one I wanted to show you that to watch out for. It's not adjacent, right? You have two angles that do share a side and a vertex, angle AOB and angle AOC. They share, right? They share this side and they share this vertex. However, they also overlap on the interior here. And so that's why those are not adjacent, right? So watch out for that. So they should have no common points on the interior, no interior points in common. All right. So watch out for those non-examples because those do, have some um, elements of adjacent angles, but they don't satisfy all the conditions. So next, let's look at vertical angles. So vertical angles, and we saw a vertical pair just a second ago in the non-example part of the adjacent angles, but vertical angles are angles whose sides are opposite rays. So they share a vertex, but nothing else. Okay, and so, and once again, more specifically, their sides are opposite rays. So I have a ray going here, and then the opposite ray going the other direction, right? So, and then the other side of this angle, I have a ray going this way, right? And then I have a ray going the opposite direction, okay? So this angle here and this angle here, 1 and 3, their sides are opposite rays from each other, right? So angle 1, its sides are opposite rays. This one and this one are opposite rays of this one and this one respectively, right? And the same with angles 2 and 4, okay? All right, so basically when two lines intersect, they form two pairs of vertical angles, right? You have the vertical angles here, like we mentioned, and then you have the ones here, like we mentioned before. All right, Now, one thing that's true about vertical angles is that they're congruent. Okay, so in this case, angle 1 is congruent with angle 3, and angle 2 is congruent with angle 4. So if you have a situation like this, then I know, oh, well, these are vertical. This is a vertical pair, right? I have two intersecting lines, and so these two angles, their sides are opposite rays, and so then I know that 74 must equal 2x, right? So I could set up an equation and solve for x, and I could, do some algebraic